record to this computer? Okay, looks like we're recording right now, Steve. And I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's up, everybody? John Hiley here with the Tactical Dent Tech podcast. And I've got my tech highlight today on my previous student, Steve Camperson, who had, what's up? What's happening, Steve? Who had
What's up,
came
buddy? How you
about.
doing?
How long ago was it did I train you, Steve? I was trying to remember the year, and I probably could look it up, but
June
you
of
should know.
2016.
June of 2016. And then I remember you came through a 2-week training program. And then, we always stayed connected. That's the one thing I tried to do with as many students as possible. Steve, he came up for all the charity events, and he came up for anything that we had going on. It seems like Steve would come up at least for every other event that we had going on. And of course, that's back when I trained Steve, I was still training under Dent Magic John. Which was my previous business name. And Steve actually reminded me of that. He said, I've seen the Dent Magic John, training and and then evolved to Tactical Dent training. And then there was a time when I got very, very focused on marketing. And Steve has been with me through it all. I still talk to Steve often, so it's an exciting podcast for me to have him here. And Steve, first off, let's just open up and tell us a little bit about the beginning of your PDR journey.
Yeah, I was basically an auto mechanic my whole life, and I was at the end of a 14-year run at a Honda dealership. I was flipping some cars for extra money, and there was a dent guy coming to the dealership, and I would snag him and pay him cash on the side to do my flip cars. And I was like, this guy's making more money than me, and I'm sick of wrenching. So I just came up with this crackpot idea. I'm just going to do PDR, and never saw a dent repair done. And I was just like, I'm quitting, and I'm going to go get training for that. And that's the short version of how I ended up in your shop. As far as doing the training goes, I think if I'd have looked into it more, I probably would have scared myself off because it got really real. When
Right.
you're a proficient mechanic and you think, hey, this is just a task, I'll just figure it out and knock it out. You know what I mean?
So you quickly figured out that it was an art opposed to just a task.
Correct. Correct. It
Right.
was a real rude awakening, and I'm glad I got it in Ohio. It's, you know what I mean, where I was from Delaware, so I'm pretty far away from home. There's no turning around and running away. You've already paid up, and you got to
Yeah.
ride it out.
Yeah. And I still remember, Steve, you kind of was on the tip of the spear because back then, and I still get it now, I usually get the first tools that come out. People know that I got a YouTube channel and I got, Facebook group and some of these things, right? So, but I remember back then that, obviously we started out with the basics and you were pushing dents on hoods and, I had you all over cars. I mean, we laugh back about the one Impala that we went through. And I still remember that one of them last dents that you repaired, which was the giant smash in. I believe that I beat that in with my hand, kind of like a giant karate chop, or kicked it, or I don't know what I did.
Yeah, it was some type of MMA strike, and I actually have that picture. I think it might be before and afters on my
Yeah.
different sites or whatever you want to call it. But the funny thing is, not to cut you off, I still look at that dent occasionally and go, ooh. Like if somebody's texted me that photo
Right.
for a quote, ooh. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. But what I remember specifically, because I just watched the video again of it, I was refreshing my memory and watched the video of it, and you were using Cola Fria back then. And a lot of
Mhm.
people don't know that was the first time that we actually got cold glue. And
Right.
if you remember correctly, that was the old original Cola Fria slide hammer that you were using across that dent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
so
remember
tell
you're like, this guy from Brazil sent me this stuff. Check it out. And it was a great way to start that particular dent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and you graduated, right? And after that, I can recall, tell us a little bit about, I remember you had a little bit of a situation because, tell me how you went out and cracked into the market, because you've always amazed me, Steve. And I think you even had this situation that you contacted me about where you were like, the very first repair you had was a Dodge Challenger door or something like that. And I remember getting a phone call from Steve, and you're like, dude, this had to be my first repair. But, you know, tell me about the mentality because you had to work through some nasty ones right off out the gate. 2 weeks training.
Yeah, like I'm gonna go backwards just a little bit to where we were in training. Like
Yeah.
I felt like you would think, hey, I'm here for PDR training. You packed in so much stuff I never anticipated. Like, this is where you go to get your logo. This is who you want to use to host your website. These are, different modalities, like abundance based mentality. Like I said, that was one of the biggest takeaways. Like, I didn't have positive role models. So, like, I'm not worrying about anybody taking from me or how they're affecting me. I'm just focusing on what I'm doing and how I can do better than them, hopefully. So that was like a huge piece of my success because, I was able to get domain names and a website up and running and a logo and all that stuff. So I kind of hit the ground running. And I don't think I would have been able to do that without those extras. That's not really part of PDR training at all. And then you're talking about Google Places, everything. It was just, there was a huge amount of education more towards the way to run a business. And like I tell people, even you were talking about being S Corp. So like that's what I did. I became an S Corp and all this stuff. So like basically, I'm not saying that like you handed me a turnkey race car, but it was kind of like that. You know what I mean? To where like I had a ready to run business out of a 2 week training, but then it's in my lap. I've got to make it work, if you know what I'm saying. And I was
Yeah.
real hungry because, I was a high level mechanic, ASC master certified L1. So I was used to killing it. And now I'm the new guy, and I'm doing something brand new. But yeah, it was basically diving into retail off the bat. And what you're talking about was I landed my first dealership. They wanted me to work part time at the dealership while I was getting the business up and running. So I got a call back from a service manager at a Volkswagen dealership, and I'm taking it in the lunchroom, turning down Mari, a bunch of idiots in there. And so I landed this dealer job, and the first day there, every single thing that I did was blocked by a brace. And I'm the new guy. Like, I had a lot of tools, but I'm like, everything was a door panel off repair. And I'm like, I'm going to price myself out of this job because, there was a lot of stuff going on. And I was ready to quit. It was my first day of my first dealer account. And I've been doing retail work prior to that, but I was ready to throw the towel in. And you had available to us as trainees the Voxter app where I could, send you those
Yeah.
voice messages and, you give me a call. So yeah, it was great having the support there. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. Like you just got to dig deep and keep chugging.
Yeah. But to go above and beyond that, Steve, what I, and I knew that everybody has that job, right? Did we call them like a career ender? You know what I mean? Where this job, and you'll still have that today. You'll get caught in one where you've gotten yourself too far. Hopefully we try to avoid them situations, but man, when you're pushing your skill set, you're going to push yourself too far occasionally.
All
And you're
right.
going to get one of them career enders. So, and it's going to happen in the beginning, but overcoming it is what builds your confidence. Overcoming it and fixing it, no matter how long it takes, is what makes you or breaks you in the very beginning, right? It's just like anything
100%.
else. Anything you start, you gotta put a lot into it, right? So, but one thing that you told me, and I was just so amazed by you, and I used you as an example, bro. I mean, you say that, as me as a mentorship and giving you, that abundance mentality, and I appreciate that, and I love that because nobody's ever told me that, and I'm sure I've done it to a lot of people, but you have been that shining light that kind of shined it back at me and told me that I helped you in that way, and I appreciate that, right? But that being said, I used you as an example because you would go out and you told me about how you would relentlessly track down jobs. So tell me how that looks. You're a new guy in a city, you're running around, you're trying to find work all day, you've already quit your job. So you got to make it happen. What is that mentality that you need to push through?
Yeah, so it was interesting. Like I think it was the 10th of June, I left your training. You had some online resources for like continued education that were totally instrumental for me because I could keep going back to that and watching videos. Like I'm a visual person and seeing how to do things and whatnot. So if I had any downtime, I was basically, studying on that. But yeah, so I was just like, if there was a car somewhere, I would just go there. I was literally going to Midas Muffler with my business card and saying, "Hey, look, I know that this isn't a service that you sell, but if these knuckleheads you got working for you dent a car, call me. I come out. I was mobile, you know. I come out, make the problem go away before the customer even knows, and it's all good for everybody." So if it was a shop that did anything with automotive, I would go in there and just be cool and talk to everybody. And that's really how I got the ball rolling. Because if anybody else in this business knows that, you know, you're trying to get some dealer accounts, I think there was like a day where I went to 18 dealerships in one day and just no, no, no. We've got one PDR guy and he's great. We've got three PDR guys that are okay. We don't need another one right now, and this and that. It's hard to get a dealer account, you know,
Yeah.
and you've got to eat a lot of no sandwiches before you get a yes, you know. So, you know, at some point in time, somebody messes up and then you get your in. Or so I would tell people, and this is something I find useful, like I'm in a new market now, go to body shops. Obviously, if it's a reputable body shop, they've got somebody. I said, listen, I'm not trying to take his work. I'm here just trying to work with you. If we get a hailstorm, I'm not trying to take your PDR guy away, but if this guy's on vacation and you need something done, give me a call. I'm going to help you out. And if you never use me again, I don't care. But look, I'm here to do this stuff. So you got to be very humble and you've got to be outgoing, even if you're not an outgoing person.
I love that, man. And what I love about that is you figured out very early on that overwhelming the system is what I call it. It is such a powerful plan because, there's something that a lot of people look at in business. And it's one of the things, one of my primary focus is KPIs. And that is, key productivity indicators. And them are all number based. And a lot of times when I work with a business, that is answering phone calls, or let's just say they're calling people for sales. I sit a guy down for sales and he's working for me. He's doing 100 calls a day. And guess what? I only expect for him to book 3 appointments and send out one proposal out of them 100 calls a day. And you know what? The compound effect of that week after week after week after week will begin to come back. So next thing you know, the guy's sending out 3 proposals a day. And I'll know very quickly if an individual is willing to go for the no. And there's a book out there that I want to recommend right here. It's called Go for No. And what this was a big corporation who used to give away prizes for like every corporation does, for the top salesperson, right? And they actually changed their strategy, and they still gave away the prizes to the top salesperson of the year, but they decided to give away prizes for the people that got the most no's. It was unfortunate for them because they were the same people. So the individuals at the very top that was making the most sales were getting the most no's. So it's one of them things that you have to be comfortable with. And that was hard for me, Steve. I have I believe I came into this world with a fear of rejection. And
Oh,
so, I didn't want to be told no or rejected or felt like I wasn't worthy until I got into sales. And then I realized it was just an everyday thing, man.
no, 100%. And that's another thing too. Like you shared that book with me. There would be times where you would hit me up on Boxster and be like, "Hey, check this book out." And I would, that was another thing. You were like, "Get an Audible account. You're a business guy now. You're driving around in your truck doing these mobile repairs. Be listening to these books. Your education to entertainment ratio needs to
Yeah.
be in check." And that's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that they touched on there was the salesperson stopping the sale based on their personal spending limits. You know what I mean? Which
Hmm.
is another thing. Like if you're there to do a dent repair and you see another one, well, I'm not going to try and upsell this damage because I wouldn't want to spend more than what they're spending, stuff like that. But
That's great.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there. That Audible thing was another really clutch thing that I think was a good portion to my success because I'd never ran a business. Nobody in my family had a business. None of my friends had a business. We were all blue collar employees. So you don't really have anybody in a position that you want to be in to talk to.
Yeah.
And when that's the case, you really can't talk to anybody because everybody's going to give you bad advice.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. I always say that. I say be very careful. Always respect your family, but don't take advice from people that are not where you want to be. Listen to them because everybody has something great to offer. And I believe a lot of times we'll get words of inspiration through all kinds of people. I mean, from all walks of life. But when it comes to particular business advice, you're not going to ask your uncle who works as a potential forklift driver to, what type of corporation you're going to set up, and things like Steve was talking about earlier. And that's one of the things that, as you know, when you immediately when you met me, Steve, I'm like a serial entrepreneur who lives, eats, and breathes it. And I'm just the kind of person that loves it when guys like Steve reach out to me. It's, I get to talk about it. Right. And so
Yeah,
Steve,
you get the nerd out, and nobody's rolling their eyes.
somebody's asking me to talk about something, I can't talk to my wife about it. My son's getting to the point where we're talking about it a lot now. So that's a breath of fresh air, but it wasn't like that back then. So I gotta go after my students and tell them, hey, no, you're not doing this right, or you need to do this right, or check out this book. So, and what I love about Steve, you've read a lot of them books and you've
A lot.
empowered your
Yeah,
mind and you've renewed your mind and transformed yourself into the man you are today. That I'm incredibly proud of. That
I appreciate that. Yeah.
all the stuff that you've done and what you've accomplished. Talking about going from the mobile retail guy, Steve, and the dealership service provider that you were, and then bridging that into you had a well, I guess I want to call, and I believe I'm just these are your words, that it was a very high end retail operation. How did that uh transpire?
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? It's an interesting thing because I only really service a small group of dealerships and body shops. You know what I mean? For the most part, I really focused on retail. I think most people would agree that are in the business that the real money is in retail. I've talked to a lot of guys at MTE and seen stuff online where there's guys that just crush it with big dealership accounts. I personally like the retail. I like people. I like talking to people, blowing people away, seeing that look of appreciation that you don't get at the dealership. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess it was time starts to blur. But anyhow, a few years in, I decided I was going to get into a shop, and I made a shop, and it looked great. I mean, it looked really great. I wanted it to look repulsive to cheap people, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you walk into a restaurant and you're like, whoa, 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 we're not spending that kind of money for lunch, and you wanted to start backpedaling and getting out of there. So when you walked into the shop, you wanted to get out of there if you weren't my ideal customer. And I had leather couches, there were power reclining in the waiting room, and coffee and drinks and all that stuff. Shop floor is immaculate. People would apologize bringing their cars in, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get your floor dirty if it was raining or whatever. But yeah, and
Yeah.
you attract your ideal customer through the environment. I would have people drive from 4 or 5 hours away sometimes. And I'm like,
Love
look,
it.
I've got a comfortable environment. I've got the phone chargers. Nobody's got an excuse to need to hurry up and leave. Um, so yeah, and I was doing a lot of high end stuff in the shop, and it was great because when you're in a fixed location, you can do estimates much more easily and accurately, and then also sell the environment,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is a big deal.
No, I love that. And one of the things that really stands out is you focused on some of the key things like getting a ton of Google reviews
Yes,
and making sure that that clientele, which still helps you today, bridging this gap.
yes,
I mean, we all had the big COVID that came along, right?
right.
And from then, Steve had his eye on a patch of land. So he wanted to get more into, he wanted to get out there on his own, do something different, go on a little bit of a quest. And Steve, that whole world was going crazy at one point, man. And I don't blame you. I used to, when I lived in Ohio, I would drive up to these little towns and walk around just to feel normal again during that time. And where you lived, I could imagine that it's even more crazy of an environment, and they're more aggressive of shutting down businesses and all these kind of things. But just I love what you're doing now, and tell us a little bit about what led you to become a mobile service provider again, and now you're down in Tennessee where you bought a big plot of land that you messaged me and you showed me. You're like, I'm really going after this piece of land. And I believe you sent me, I don't know if it was like one of them aerial shots or something like that of it
Yeah.
before you got the place. But go ahead and tell me a little bit about how all this transpired.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, um, COVID hit and it shook my reality. I always basically felt like I never voted in my life. I'm going to keep my head down, focus on my goals. I'm going to work, and it doesn't matter who's in that chair. I'm going to get it done. And then I felt very threatened, to be honest with you. I'm not a fearful person. I felt very threatened because I jokingly say I'm the cosmetologist of automotive. So I'm not really an essential person out, unless I'm, in a body shop, if you see what I'm saying. I'm like,
Hmm.
they're going to shut me down. And I was going off roading in upstate PA. Like nature became my sanctuary during COVID, much like what you were saying. I would go up there. It was like it wasn't even going on because it was a deep red area. And man, I was just having a great time. And I said, I want this. I don't really want to live in like suburban Delaware anymore. And I was like, all right, well, I like the mountains. I guess that's where we're going. I was like, I don't really want the extreme cold of PA. And I kind of just looked at a map and I was like, Kentucky seems a little too redneck for me. So maybe Tennessee. And just kind of put my finger on the map and started searching for land. And I originally, I basically jumped the gun in a way. Like I made it happen too fast, if you know what I'm saying.
Hmm.
But I just wanted out of the area. I'm like, I've had enough of this. People were giving me a hard time about everything. So I bought like 51 acres down here. I kind of got my own little mountain, if you will, and took like 2.5 years off, to just run a track loader and cut trees down and clear land and stuff like that. And I'm a big person on like everything happens for a reason. Not so much the cliche, but this guy cold called me because I've got a gate at the end of my driveway. I can't even see the end of the driveway, and it had my phone number. Please leave packages at the gate. He called me, and he was an excavator. He's looking to do a deal to pull dirt out of here. And I talked to him, and he's like, "It's a shame you're not doing PDR anymore," because I had something in my voicemail. If your previous customer, I've moved, check this local guy out. And he's like, "Because I've got some nasty dents on my truck that I'd like to get fixed." So, long story short, this guy pulled me out of retirement in December of, I guess, 2023. He had a brand new Chevy Silverado. What is the top model? It's like high country or something
Yeah,
like
I believe
that.
it to be a high
Whatever.
country. Yep, yep.
Both doors wiped out. I mean, I'm talking about on your very best day kind of work. And I'm like, you know what? I haven't done a job in 2.5 years. Yeah, I'll do it. Door off repairs in his driveway. And I was like, I want it again. And it got me. I was like, it's time to open back up, you know. And I'm like, I'm going to go mobile again. Everybody wanted weekend hours, and everybody wanted mobile, even when I was in the shop. So I was like, I'm going to do it again, and that's where I'm at.
You know what I love about that, man, is that your hands are back alive again in the business, right? And it's kind of cool that it could serve you in one season and then that season gets shut down, gets like taken away, really. And a lot of us experience that. I'm sure there's guys that are listening to this right now that experience that.
Mm-hmm.
And and now that season of your life came back after you decided not. And I watched your photos. You were not only using them, I don't know, you had tractors, bulldozers, track loaders, is that what you call them? But you were
Yeah,
out
this one's a
there.
track loader.
Yep, you were out there with the mechanical parts, fixing them. You had your ATVs out there, and you still have that. You got your dogs out there, that big piece of land that you got, and now in this season, you were able to take your Google Map location from no evidence and then move it down into the Tennessee area. Now, you told me that was a little bit of you had to feel like you had to jump through some hoops there. Tell me a little bit about how that panned out for you.
It was a rude awakening because I'll be honest with you, like through a lot of the books and stuff that you've recommended to me and ones that I found, the best business model is to basically don't think about it, just jump in the water and it's sink or swim and you'll figure it out. And it really does work because I get the analysis paralysis. So I was like, look, I'm just going to go down here. I was number one in my market in Delaware. I turned more work down than I did, if you know what I'm saying. I was able to cherry pick and stuff like that. I was like, let the other guys get the scraps, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I'm like, look, I think I came down here with like, I don't know, 230 some 5-star reviews, no 4, no 3, no 1, all 5 stars. And I said, I'm just going to turn this bad boy back on and start printing money again whenever I feel like it. Well, there was a rude awakening because Google has changed their policy since 2016 when I started, where before they would just send you a card and you would put the code in and they basically turned the lights on. And these guys, I mean, it took a long time, like weeks, for me to get through it because they kept throwing me different hurdles. They want to see your business license, they want to see proof of residency, they want to see your car start on video, they want to see the tachometer move, like they want to see pictures of the tag, your registration. Like every time I would get a hold of them, they would hit me with something else and be like, okay, well, sorry, we can't finish it. You've got to come back. Or they would limit your options. Like you can't do a live chat. All you can do is submit these videos of your location and pictures. And then 5, 6 days would go by and it would say out of process, need to verify. And I was like, whoa, we're in trouble now because I needed to get started and it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
You know?
What I love though is about your resilience again is that you didn't give up. And you see, most people give up after a couple times. They wouldn't have stayed in there the 2, the 3, the 4 weeks. And that's one of the reasons why I brought this up. Well, not only it could be helpful for individuals who may have to move their location, be ready for that, guys. I have seen businesses get literally ravaged, like raptured, simply because they move from one side of town to the other side of town. And it's a very scary thing with Google because you got to thrive in business. You get a bigger location, you're all happy, but you don't realize that 50% of your phone calls are coming from that Google map listing, maybe more
100%.
sometimes. And so, be very, very careful when it comes to this and just know that it's going to be a process. And I wanted to point that out because I believe that could help a lot of folks out there to, if anything, think twice about the decision a little bit, and make sure that when you set up that Google Map location, you set it up correctly and where you're going to be, and then be ready for some downtime when that happens. So you got to be prepared for that kind of stuff. Um, awesome, Steve. Well, did you want to say something here before
Yeah,
I?
to add on to what you're saying, 100% of what you're saying is true. And then also too, like I have currently 130 more reviews than the top reviewed PDR service provider in this area. Um, and I still rank number 6. Okay. And I've been working hard to get to number 6. It was like 13 before. If your reviews aren't from the area, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter how many reviews you have, it doesn't matter how many pictures you have or how great your website is. They're going to make you work for that number 1 spot. And I'm slowly getting there. I'm like 4 or 5 depending on what day it is now, but I'm going to eventually get to the number 1 spot. But you got to pretty much beg for these reviews and you've got to knock people's socks off. So if somebody's going to move and you think you're going to take your hundreds of reviews to the new market and you're going to rank number 1, forget about it. Maybe at some point in time, but not now,
yeah.
you know?
And to top that off, I will tell you, and I know I told you this as well, Steve, is that the folks that are getting the most reviews are making it a lot more personal. So, in a world where everybody wants all these automations and you don't want to do anything above and beyond what you want to do, you're making a mistake by not personalizing particular things. And I have a client who has like 1,200 Yelp reviews, and he lives out there on the West Coast, so Yelp's a big deal out there.
It is, yeah.
And I, so here's how he done it. He would send video requests. He would say, hey, he would send a video to the guy with a Google link underneath of it and say, "Hey, Jim, man, I just want to make sure everything's all right with you, and I hope your dog Fluffy's okay or whatever." He would add a little some personal touch to it, so it didn't sound like it's just this automated stuff. People get turned off from this automated stuff nowadays. So as a marketer, I hate to say that because I'd love to say, I could save you 10,000 hours by automating everything, but guess what? What are you going to lose by doing that, right? People want a personal
Nothing.
connection, a personal touch. You know what I mean? And
I do.
people want to know they're just been taken care of. So these videos he would send, Steve, he 9 out of 10, he'd get the review, and he would almost be that kind of guy that'd be like hurt if he didn't get the 10th review. That's how important it was to him. And if they didn't on the first video, he would send them a second video. And he would just like,
Savage.
hey, Joe, look, man, did you forget me? And he'd get kind of like a little funny with it, and then send that to him. And he goes, and then that one would surely get them to do the review after that. Then there's the technique of sending out the Starbucks cards with a handwritten letter and letting them know where they can go, or maybe putting a little QR code down there they can scan and give you that review. But that $5 Starbucks card where you bought somebody's coffee that morning could get you a review that could make you a lot of money in the future. But above and beyond that, a relationship that lasts for a long time with your clients.
100%. I'm always like super, super helpful with people. And you also have to consider certain things too. Like if you're new in a market like I am, very few people are open on Saturdays. Nobody's open on Sunday. So I run Wednesday through Sunday, and people, I mean, they absolutely cannot get enough of the weekend services. And it's a great, I try to do big jobs. I really like to do nasty work because it pays better and it's more rewarding for me and the customer. So yeah, all that stuff. But basically, when you knock somebody's socks off and you're at their house on a Sunday, or you're calling back a hang up, which is something I never did before. Calling back hang ups, people are like, "What?" Like, yeah, this is Steve from No Evidence. I missed a call from this number. I just wanted to see if there was anything that I could help you out with. And they're like, "Oh yeah, actually, this, that, and the other thing, or maybe I would, whatever it is." But yeah, you got to make it happen. And all the stuff that you're talking about, it's great. The Starbucks cards and stuff like that. That number one Google spot will make you so much money because you're basically going to come up before you actually click to see more providers. You're at the top of the list. It's one call to action. They're like Paintless Dent Repair near me. You're at the number. If you're one through third, you know what I mean? You show up without clicking on see more, which is another call to action. People can just hit the button and there you are. Especially, if you've got a lot of great reviews, sometimes it can backfire on you because the expectations are so high. But everybody wants the best. Everybody's not willing to pay for the best. And respect, there's so many guys out that are way better than me. I mean, there's like I'm gonna Bryce Kelly name drop. Why not? We'll give it to him.
Yeah, he's
But I
one
mean,
of the best in the world.
the stuff that he does is mind blowing. You know what I mean? And the guys just got patience and technique. A lot of times, and this is for other techs out there. I've watched his videos, and I'm like, what's the difference between me and him? And I look at these repairs, and I'm like, well, that's what it looks like before I hit finish quality. He's just got the dedication to keep slugging through from that nasty 75% to 80, 85, 90. You know what I mean? And it's just like that
Yeah.
with your customers too. You've got to do what you got to do to please them. And the referrals are really where it's at because you don't have to sell the value. It's already been sold. So spend time with your customers.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned Bryce Kelly because he's world class. But here's what you also got to remember about Bryce Kelly. He was really good. Like he just came out of nowhere back early on in my
Yes.
career. And I still remember the video. I mean, this would have been back in like right when YouTube first came out. So I don't know whether that was 2007, 2009, but Bryce put a video of him kicking in a fender and fixing it. And one of the things that we spoke to Bryce about, because he started putting on these, what would back then was very impressive, but wouldn't be impressive now, right? So that's how much we've evolved
Right.
over the years. The stuff he's doing now, incredibly impressive. He's just such a talented tech. But here's the thing: back then, Bryce even had the mentality he was underselling himself, and if he was here with me today, he would admit to that, and he would tell you that because he was doing these jobs for $250, $225, that like the kick-in fender, that he was doing.
Yeah.
And so Bryce eventually evolved to what he does today. And now, I mean, I think I seen a Porsche that he did. It was just wild. It was like a incredibly, like he took it all apart. I mean, this might have been a day or a multi-day repair. And I want to
Hmm.
say he might have got like 4 to 6 grand from it, just off the top of my head. I don't remember the exact price, but it was up there. It was noticeably up there where now he has the knowledge and the wisdom to know what his worth is. Okay. So,
Yeah.
that's important for all of us. I believe Steve, something that you've always known your worth out there. And I seen you move that thermometer, the worth thermometer moved up quick for you. And I love seeing that move so fast for you early on. And going back to that, if you went back to 2016 till now, I mean, would you say that you've easily made over $1 million, if not millions of dollars through the last 8 years?
I mean, I wouldn't say millions just because like I'm real hungry and wanting to prove to myself that I'm good enough and to the customers and all that. For the most part, like once I was in my shop, I kind of got into a little bit of a lazy phase, if you know what I'm saying. I was working Monday
Shops
through
will do that
Friday,
to you.
and that's part of my path that I didn't really talk about was I'm working 9 to 4 Monday through Friday. Like if you wanted to pick up after hours, I would help you out. I mean, if you had a cool car and I told people I'm not trying to educate you how to talk to me into working on a Saturday, but if you've got a cool car and you can convince me to come in, I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was just kind of killing it for just a single guy who was working that narrow range of hours. You couldn't have done any better than I was doing inside of that parameter. Now, if I was doing hill work or if I was working 7 days a week or I turned it up a little bit, I could have done a lot better financially. I felt like I did pretty good for what what we're talking about there. Like an example, we were talking about the big money jobs. I had a guy with a 200-mile Dodge Demon that basically blank checked me. I said, I don't know what it's going to cost to do it. I've got to pull the door. I've got to take the trunk, apart. I've got to pull the back bumper off. It's going to be thousands. I don't know how many thousands, but it's going to be thousands, and it's going to be perfect. If you're going to give me the leeway to do what I got to do, it'll be like it never happened. And I think that was a $3,300 job.
Yeah. That's so good.
So when you just hit, I mean, he had money, he had a business, but he was like, man, I can't believe I'm paying this much. And I'm like, I saved you a ton of money. I said, this is a numbered car and it's got the factory paint. And he was like, I'm totally happy with it. It's just for somebody to basically blank check me, I'm not used to that because he's used to, bidding jobs.
So I've never asked you that question. I figured that would kind of put you on the spot a little bit. But essentially, what this became for you, because early on, this is the way I was, it's a lifestyle. It became
Yes.
a lifestyle career.
Yes.
And you became your own boss and you set your own hours. And, I believe it's a very dignified place to be, to know that you've got a line of clients and customers who are going to pay you a lot. You don't have to work long hours and you can go hang out in your shop that you can eat off the floor.
Right, and it was great because like what I was doing is like you said, using it as a vehicle to live the life I wanted to live. I grew up without, if you know what I'm saying. So I would work, I would punch my time clock, and I would go ride my turbocharged side by side in the mountains, or go out on my supercharged jet skis and have a good time. And it was like compartmentalized. You know what I mean in that sense. But there's a lot of ways that you can run this business. You can be straight up money. You can be lifestyle. I'm kind of back in a lifestyle thing now because the nice thing about being mobile, as long as Google's working for you, because I jokingly say you can see the Burger King, you can smell the Burger King, but when you're a mobile service, nobody sees you. Okay, you're invisible unless you show up on Google because you're everywhere and nowhere.
Right.
So unfortunately, you're gonna be surviving off of the marketing. But the nice thing is I'm out here building the road, going through the woods with my track loader on a Monday or Tuesday if I'm off, unless the body shop needs something or whatever. But if there's no work, I'm doing me stuff, and I'm not sitting in a shop like the Maytag man. And another thing is I've got access to as far as I want to go, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of being in one location, now there is drawbacks. You're spending time driving, which it's hard to make you the dollar an hour that you want to make while driving, if you know what I mean. But it is nice to be able to reach a large area and then still have your own freedom. I can call somebody back or return a message while I'm out here doing my thing if there happens to not be work that day. But yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can work the business. I mean, you can be straight about the money, be a multi-tech shop, or just chase and hail, or you can make a life for yourself. Just what do you want to do?
Yeah. Well, what I love about having you on the podcast, Steve, is that your honesty just shines through. And a lot of the things that you dropped here today could really help an individual who's getting into paintless dent removal or maybe has just gotten some sort of training, really not only understand what they're up for, but they've got these particular decisions. And it's good to see you on the other side of that because you've seen the whole path. You've been around all the dent technicians. You've seen what different people are doing, and you've lived it yourself in your own way. So what a powerful amount of wisdom that you've been able to drop for anybody listening to this podcast right now. And that being said, anybody who follows you, do you want to give them your Instagram or any links that you might want to give anybody to maybe give you a follow?
Not really. I mean, I'm just a dent guy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I'm not a big deal guy. I'm just trying to run a business and make some money. And if anybody can benefit from anything that I'm saying, that's great. You know what I mean? But it's no evidence. I know EDIDENTS. You can, if you're a new guy, want to look at Google reviews or whatever, you can find me on Google. And I got a business Facebook and Instagram, same name. But yeah, just get out there and do it. Maybe go to an MTE, so you can get your hands on some tools, see what's out there, and just talk to guys and see what's going on, because there are a lot of guys that I met down there in the beginning. And when you can see what's possible and the different lanes, there's guys.
Mm,
I talk to guys that are in that wholesale lane and they're just crushing it, and they don't want to talk to people. So if you don't want to talk to people, you could crush it in a wholesale environment doing big dealer accounts. So there's a way to do it, and you can just do it your way. You know what I mean?
well, the trick to wholesaling, Steve, down here in areas like Dallas, is they wait till the hail damage comes, and then all the dent guys leave their wholesale accounts and go find the hail, right? Because all the money's in the hail.
Right.
Well, there's been guys out there who recognize that, and they said, "I don't want to do hail. I don't want to be in a body shop. All that stuff's way too hard for me. I just want to sit on a dealership lot, get fed." And
Right.
they went after them accounts during that time, and that's the guys that usually win them accounts. So,
And you're going to get them because, like, for instance, the accounts that I had, I basically only dealt with three dealerships. I had a Dodge dealership, a Volkswagen, and a GM dealership. And I dropped the GM dealership because they were just, I didn't want to, I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. You know what I mean? They were fine. They were fine people, but I was trying to fill more retail in with them. But these guys, I mean, it's good, steady money, and just be there for them when they need you, and you'll be good. But like you said, if you get flaky, you are done. You know what I
you're
mean?
done.
Especially if you're out chasing hail. And when they need something, because there's always that old guy, I'm not taking this thing until it's fixed.
Yeah.
So there are times where you would have to come in there on a day that you didn't service the account. But yeah,
Well, that's
to the
awesome, my
victor go
brother.
the spoils.
Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Steve, for giving us that extra piece of advice there. And so we're going to go ahead and cut out of this episode of the Tactical Dent Tech podcast. Tech highlight, Mr. Steve Camperson. Y'all just got $1 million worth of information right there. Follow what you heard on this podcast and just know that you're likely going to be in a very similar experience, either after you get training or maybe you're a long-term dent technician and you guys know what we're saying is true here. And so that's been my commitment, is to drop the truth on the podcast. So that way, when you get into something, I don't want people to get in over their heads and be somewhere where they know they can't commit to what it's actually going to take to win and to succeed. And you're looking at, in my opinion, one of the fastest winners that I've trained out of the, 100 guys that I've trained. Steve had been very committed, and he stayed dedicated. And today he's still being fed with a lifestyle business of his choice, from a trade that he decided to take the leap of faith and quit a job as a six-figure mechanic and go into this wonderful repair method. So anyhow, y'all, I appreciate you. And as usual, we'll see you on the next one. Oh, hold up. Let me just hit the button here. Do, 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 do.